Okay, this is the gas-powered SPUD gun. Now, I have to tell you, when I was a little boy, we used to play with SPUD guns. They're really good fun. And all of them were powered by gas. But the toys we had was just done by squeezing your fingers on a little trigger and it pumped air. We're going to use a slightly different way of doing it. And you can still get those SPUD guns, by the way. Great fun. What you need is a bottle. Now, you can see I'm using this glass bottle. It's about 500 millilitres. If you're going to use glass, please be sensible. Plastic is fine. I'm just using glass because I want you to see what's happening inside and to show you one of the ways you can do it. Got a cutting board here you can see, which is clanking about. You're going to need a spud or a potato. I've got a potato here which has been cut. Now what you need to do is probably get some help with this one, I'm sure, because what I want you to do is find someone to help, because you're going to need to use a sharp knife, and I want you to make, very carefully and take as much time as it needs, some sort of stoppers, we might call them, potato stoppers. And as you can see, I've already got a few we've made here already, just a few there in water. I've put them in water because if we don't have them in water, they start going brown and going a bit soft. So I do actually recommend leaving them in water if there's going to be a time gap. So you make them and then come back and do it in half an hour or a couple of hours. Just leave them in water, because otherwise when it starts going brown, they tend to go a bit softer. So leave it in water. Otherwise, if you're going to use them straight away, it doesn't matter. So you need to make some, and the size you need to make is so that when you've got your bottle, and have your bottle on hand, make sure that the wide end is much wider than the bottle itself, or the opening of the bottle I should say. So it's wider than the opening. See, that's not going to fit easy, is it? But have it so it gets narrower towards one end. We call it tapering. Have it so it's tapering, and have the tapered end so that tapered end can fit in the bottle like that. Because what you're going to be doing in a minute, I'll do a few more things first, but what I want you to do in a minute is get one of your pieces of potato cork, put it in and bash it down quickly so it fits nice and snug. That's what I want you to do, okay? So that's the sort of shape I recommend trying. Leave that there. First though, what I want to do is to use some other ingredients. I've got some baking powder here, just baking powder, and we've got some brown vinegar here, okay? What I'm going to do first is put some baking powder in the bottle. Now, as you can see, I'm using this funnel, and you'll notice already this funnel only just about fits. The reason I'm choosing a funnel that only just fits is because I want it to be as wide as possible, because I want things to move in as quickly as possible. Not so much the powder, but the vinegar I want to flow in really quickly. So the bigger the hole, the quicker it will go in, okay? Now, first of all, I'm going to put some baking powder in, and I'm going to use about a big heaped tablespoon. But I'm only saying about because I'm going to do it in a couple of bits, and that's something you might think about. I'll come back to that later. So just sprinkle it in, because if I put it all in one big go, it might get blocked. Make sure you try and find powder which is in a powder form, not big lumps and clumps in it, because if you've got big lumps and clumps, they might get stuck down inside. Okay, got a little bit of oil, one for luck. Okay, jolly good. So that's the powder, enough of that one. And you can see the powder in the bottom. Right, now what I want you to do is, this is the bit we have to get everything ready. And of course doing this in the kitchen's a good place. Outside actually is probably better for this one, because something interesting is going to happen. I'll give you one clue. If you do it in your kitchen, make sure you've got nice solid ceilings, okay? No soft stuff. If you've got a nice solid ceiling, go for it. Otherwise, outside. We're going to do it in here because we've got a solid ceiling, so we're not worried too much about that. So let's choose one of our pieces. I'm going to use this piece since it's on the top. We've got a few more to use if we want to, so we're going to leave that there. Because what I want you to do next is get some vinegar. This is about 150 ml. As quick as you possibly can, you've got to do just one swift movement, okay? You pour the vinegar in, whip that out, get rid of it fast, quick as you can, put that stopper in, bash it down, and stand back. Off you go. So let's see what happens with my one. Well, as you can see, rather energetic experiment, this one. I'm not even sure if you need much of an explanation from me. I think you saw most of what was going on, didn't you? So let's have a think. By the way, you may have a little look at our ceiling to see what happened in here. But this is another reason why doing it outside is probably better. And quite a lot of mess, and of course I'm going to need a shower. So let's have a little think what happened. Of course you can see most of it. The vinegar has got acid in it. And when we poured it in on top of the baking powder, it started a chemical reaction, because in baking powder we have bicarbonate of soda. And when you react vinegar or acid with bicarbonate of soda, they react together in a chemical reaction, which is quite an aggressive reaction, as you saw there, making lots and lots of gas, carbon dioxide gas actually, and it foams up, and you saw how quickly the reaction happens. And of course I was having a bit of trouble getting the stopper in, and I want you to notice I rammed it in pretty firmly, so don't be too timid with this one. Get it in, ram it right in. And it's a better way of doing it actually, because when you ram it in like that, as it goes down inside, it squashes up and grips the inside of the bottle and makes a better seal. And that's why when I rammed it and it didn't come out immediately, you saw it oozing out and then suddenly fired out. So the pressure was building up and up and up as the gas was trying to escape, of course. Our potato stopper was stopping it. And eventually though, the pressure got so high and the potato started being pushed out, you probably saw that, and eventually it suddenly just couldn't grip anymore and the potato was flung out and splattered our ceiling. And of course I got a good dosing as well, hey ho. So there you go, the spud gun powered by gas. So what variables could we do with this one? Well, the amounts of the materials we were using. You saw how much powder I put in, you saw how much vinegar I put in. How about changing one or the other? Remember, in fair testing, when you change one thing, you've got to leave everything else the same if you can. So make a note of the measurements you use. And if you change the vinegar, keep the powder the same. If you change the powder, keep the vinegar the same. So change one or the other, see what happens. What about using a different container? This is a 500 milliliter glass bottle. What about using a plastic bottle? What about using a bigger bottle? Or a smaller bottle? I'm not quite sure how much success you'll have with a smaller bottle. You saw how quickly it happened in there. So perhaps a big bottle might give you a bit more time. There's a hint. What about changing the shape of the plugs that we made here, our stoppers? This is the shape I used. I wonder if that would make any sort of difference, changing the shape. What about using something other than potato? I mean, a spud gun traditionally uses potatoes. That's why they're called spud guns. Spud is the nickname of potatoes, if you like. What about using some other fruit or vegetable which you know you can make like this? But apple, for example. Apple might work, mightn't it? Give that a go. Or some other substance you might think. What about if you use something softer than this? Something that might be a bit more squidgy, but would that still work, I wonder? What about changing the temperature of the vinegar? This is just ordinary room temperature vinegar. What about if we use hot vinegar? That could be a bit aggressive, that one. There's a clue. What about using freezing cold vinegar that you've left in the fridge, say, for a few hours? And I'm sure you can think of a few other things.